Hello students, welcome back to MKH video series. My name is Aditya and in the previous video we have successfully completed chapter number 9th. You can see, so I hope you have done all the questions based on that chapter at home on yourself. Now today I'm going to move on to a new chapter, that is chapter number 10th, which is named as circles, right? So today I'm going to introduce this chapter to you. So what the important thing here is, the introduction of any chapter is the base of that chapter. That means the basic things that I'm going to teach you today for this chapter are going to discuss further that how will you understand the upcoming chapter. So you have to understand it very carefully because this is the base of this chapter, right? So let us move on with the introduction of this chapter. You can see chapter number 10th, which is circles here. So यहाँ पे सबसे पहले what is a circle, right? So यहाँ पे you can see I have drawn a diagram which shows a circle with a center point O, right? So if you just have seen a compass, so if we just simply place the tip of the compass here with some radius, right? So with some space open, right? So we just draw by scrolling that pencil like this. So we got a circle, right? So basically from the being as a child, we draw a circle like this, right? So you can see here, let me just tell you, the circle, you can see this line here, this curve. So अगर आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे, अगर मैं इस कर्व के ऊपर बहुत सारे पॉइंट्स की बात करूं, right? So there are infinite number of points on this circle, right? So actually this curve of this circle is known as the circumference, right? So this curve on the curve you can see is known as circumference, right? So on the circumference there are infinite number of points, right? So मैं मान लेता हूं कि इस circumference के ऊपर बहुत सारे unlimited infinite number of points हैं, right? Then let me just tell you that this is the circumference where all the infinite number of points are lying here. So the collection of all the points, you can see the collection of all the points in a plane. So you can see this whole board is also a plane here. So you can see this circle is on a plane, right? So you can see this is a plane area. So this circle is lying on a plane, and you can see I have told you the collection of all the points in a plane, you can see, which are at a fixed distance from a fixed point in the plane. So you can see अगर मैं इस point की बात करूं, for example, so let me just join this point with the center here, right? So अगर मैं इस point को इस center से join करूंगा, let me just draw it a bit straighter like this. So you can see the distance of this point which is lying on the circumference of this circle from the center of the circle. ये क्या है आपके पास? Center of the circle. Getting my point? So this distance, let me just tell you, this distance is known as radius, right? So जब आपने अपनी कंपास को ओपन किया to some extent, so वो जो distance है between the pencil tip and the pointer of the compass, वो जो distance है वो क्या होता है? Radius होता है, right? So we can just draw a circle of any radius, right? So for example, we can draw a 2 centimeter radius circle, then 3 centimeter, 4 centimeter, and so on, right? So जितना distance हम compass का open करते हैं, that distance is known as radius. So here you can see the distance between the point on the circumference of the circle and the center of the circle. This distance is known as radius, which is shown by a small r, right? So here I have written that. So अगर आप देखेंगे तो ये सभी points जो circumference के ऊपर lie करते हैं, the infinite number of points, उन सभी का distance जो है इस center से same होगा, because you can see this all the lengths will be the radius of the circle, right? So ये सभी length क्या होगी? Radius होगी circle की. So they are going to be the same length, right? So now you understand. You can see the distance of the point lying on the circumference of the circle from a fixed point at the center is known as the radius, right? So let me just recall about the circle here. So what will be the definition of the circle? You can see the first statement written here is the definition of the circle. So आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे the collection of all the points. You can see these are the all points which are lying on the circumference. So the collection of all the points in a plane. So this is a plane. So the collection of all the points in a plane which are at a fixed distance. So आप देख सकते हैं ये सभी points जो हैं वो एक fixed distance पे हैं from a fixed point. That is the center. So ये जो fixed point है ये क्या कह रहा है? ये center है. Right? So you can see all the points, the collection of all the points in a plane which are at fixed distance from a fixed point is called a circle. So अब आपको समझ में आया that what is actually a circle, right? Now let us move further. Now the fixed point here is called the center of the circle. I have told you. So this fixed point here is known as the center of the circle. और यहाँ पे center of the circle का name क्या दिया मैंने? O, right? So you can see further. Now the fixed distance is called as the radius of the circle that I have told you. So all the points lying on the circumference of the circle are at a fixed distance from this center fixed point, right? So this distance is known as the radius of the circle, right? So here we came across a new word that is radius. So I hope you understood what radius actually is. Then you can see in this figure I have already told you that O is the center and the length OP. Let me just take this point as OP, right? So let me just write it a bit bigger. So now you can see this OP length is the radius of the circle, right? So this OP length of radius, right? So this is the radius of the circle, right? So all these lengths are of same length. That means all are the radius of this circle, right? So this was all about the base thing which you need to understand here before moving on further, right? So that was the basic thing that I needed to share with you on circles. So students, now let us move further. Now I'm going to explain you all the important terms of this chapter step by step. So just you have to keep your focus right here. So let us move now. You can see now यहाँ पर मैंने आप देख सकते हैं एक plane draw किया. This is a plane. Then this is the circle that I have drawn in this plane, right? So यहाँ पे actual में क्या हुआ? This circle has actually divided the plane here on which it lies into three parts. So ये जो circle है जो कि इस plane के ऊपर lie कर रहा है, so this circle actually has divided this plane into three parts. So कौन-कौन से three parts हैं? Let me just tell you. So ये जो inside है circle की, so this is known as the interior of the circle, right? So you can see the first is the inside the circle, which is also known as interior of the circle. So ये तो था first part. Then if I just take a look at the outside of this, so ये जो बाहर वाला part है, let me just tell you with a different pattern here so that you can differentiate. So ये जो बाहर वाला part है, that is known as the exterior of this circle, right? Then the third one you can see is, you can see on the circle, right? So ये जो circle itself है, or you can say just the circumference, right? So ये जो circumference है circle की, इसको आप third region बोल सकते हैं यहाँ पे. So this is how the circle lying on the plane, you can see divides that plane into three parts. One is the interior, the other one is the exterior, and the third one is the circle itself, or you can say the circumference, right? So this is you can see the three parts that in which the circle divides the plane on which it is lying, right? So that was all the topic I need to discuss here about, you can see the parts in which the circle divides on which it is lying. So students, now let us move further here. So you can see now what I'm going to discuss here is about the chord and diameter. So यहाँ पे मैं आपके सामने दो नए terms को introduce करूंगा. The one is chord, you can see, and the other one is diameter, right? So let me just start off here. So you can see a line segment joining any 2 points on a circle is called a chord of the circle, right? So let me just tell you कि इस circumference के ऊपर अगर suppose कीजिए दो points हैं, suppose here. So let me just take this point as P and this point as Q. So both the points are lying on the circumference of the circle. So let me just tell you the line segment joining any 2 points. So this is the line segment joining these 2 points lying on the circumference. So this line segment is known as chord here, right? So now I hope you understood what a chord actually is. So a chord is simply a line segment joining any 2 points on a circle, right? So let me just tell you, now this is a chord. Let me just now further move on. You can see again, let me just take these 2 points and join them like this. Let me just represent it by R and S. So this is another chord. Now you can see this RS chord here, which I have drawn, is greater in length from PQ. Getting my point? Now let me just move further here. Then RS, T and U. Let me just take another 2 points, T and U. Let me just join these now. Now, can you tell me the difference in this TU and RS? So the difference actually is that this chord TU is passing through the center fixed point O, right? So that means कि ये जो chord है TU is passing through the center, right? So आप देख सकते हैं ये जो chord है ये center में से pass हो रही है. Now again if you talk about this TU, so this is greater than RS as well as PQ. यानी कि ये जो है ये TU जो है वो बाकी दोनों chord से भी बड़ी है, right? Now let me just move further now. Again if I just take 2 points, let me just write this here. So let me just write it like this. Now you can see if I just name them X and Y. So अगर ये दो points की बात करूं, again let me just join them. Now you can see XY is also a chord here. But again you can see this XY is now less than TU. Right? So आप देख सकते हैं ये जो XY है ये TU से छोटी है. And so on if we just move further here. So this came us to the conclusion that कि ये जो TU है, this is the largest chord of a circle. Now let me just tell you कि ये जो TU है, which is the largest chord of a circle, also passing through the center of the circle, right? Which is a difference from the other chords. So ये जो TU है, जो कि center में से pass हो रही है और largest chord है of a circle, इसको हम एक specific name देते हैं. That is diameter, right? So यानी कि the largest chord of the circle passing through the center of the circle is known as diameter, right? Now let me just tell you, if I just draw a circle alone here with a, you can see this is not a very good circle, just you have to consider it because I'm drawing it free flow, right? So I will try to make better as much as I can. Now you can see this is the center of the circle. Now let me just take 2 points A and B. So I have already told you the line segment which is passing through the center of the circle joining the 2 points is the chord of the circle. Now this is the largest chord of any circle, right? So you can see diameter is the largest chord. So this is what a diameter actually is. Now let me just move further into this topic. अब आप देखेंगे, suppose if I just rub this line here from here, so what this distance is called. मैंने आपको स्टार्टिंग में बताया था that the point lying on the circumference of the circle, so the distance of that point from the center of the circle is known as radius, which I have just represented it here with a small r. So आप देख सकते हैं ये distance कितना है, r है, because मैंने आपको बताया था स्टार्टिंग में that the distance of any point lying on the circumference of the circle from the center of the circle is known as radius. So अगर मैं यहाँ पे इस distance को दोबारा बनाऊं, so you can see अब ये distance यहां से यहां तक का भी क्या है, radius, and these are equal in length. मैंने आपको बताया था एक सर्कल की सर्कमफ्रेंस के ऊपर जितने भी पॉइंट्स लाई करते हैं उसका सेंटर से जो डिस्टेंस होता है वो सेम होता है. सो दैट मींस दिस इज आल्सो रेडियस ऑफ द सर्कल. सो यहां पे अगर मैं रिप्रेजेंट करूं कि OA और OB दोनों क्या हैं, रेडियस हैं सर्कल की, राइट. सो अगर मैं यहां पे डायामीटर की बात करूं AB, सो AB क्या है मेरे पास यहां पे, डायामीटर. नाउ यू कैन सी R प्लस R कितने हो गए आपके पास, 2R, right? That means twice of R. You can also write it as 2 into R, right? So that means 2R is known as the diameter of the circle. So diameter को मैं radius की फॉर्म में कैसे बता सकता हूं, 2 into R. You can see, आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे 2 times R आ रहा है. So this is the total length of the diameter. So here I have just written a formula here that the diameter of any circle is twice the radius of that circle, right? Also, I can generate one more relation from here. अगर मैं इस you can see 2 को जो कि R के साथ मल्टीप्लाई में है, अगर लेफ्ट हैंड साइड में D के डिवाइड में भेज दूं, so we can get also radius as the half of diameter. So यानी if we want to calculate the radius of any circle, then if we know the diameter, then just half that diameter you will get the radius. For example, if you know that the radius of any circle is 14 centimeter, then you can calculate the diameter from here. So the diameter will be 2 into 14, that is 28 centimeter, right? And the reverse thing is, if you just know the diameter of any circle, suppose 28 centimeter, and you want to calculate the radius, so you can see how we can calculate the radius. Simply divide the diameter by 2. So you can see then the radius will be 28 upon 2. So that will be 2 14s are 28. So that will be 14 centimeter, right? So if you know the diameter, then you can calculate the radius. And if you know the radius, then you can calculate the diameter. So here I have just explained you 3 things actually. You can see the chord, diameter, and you can see the relation between diameter and radius, right? So these are the 2 relations here. Let me just explain you. So these are the 2 relations which will come further into this chapter, right? So let me just reread these all things. So you can see a chord passing through the center of a circle, you can see, is known as its diameter, right? So ये जो longest chord होती है, let me just tell you, right, which is passing through the center of the circle, and it is named as diameter. Then a diameter is the longest chord and its length is equal to twice the radius, right? So that is what I have explained you here. So that was all in this topic here. So students, now let us move on to the next term here which needs to be explained. So the next term which I'm going to explain you is arc, right? So let me just write that is ARC, right? So it is actually further divided into 2 parts. One is major arc and the other one is minor arc, right? So let me just explain you with the help of a circle, right? So suppose if I just cut this circle in 2 parts, right? So here let me just tell you, if I just cut this, so here I have got 2 curves here, right? So ये जो 2 curve हैं, you can see this is the greater curve and this is the smaller curve, right? So let me just write that this PQ and this PQ, right? So the slash, that means the division that I have done in a line. So let me just tell you that here you can see it has divided it into two parts, right? So this, you can see the curve here. So this is the arc, right? So there are two arcs formed when I just divided a circle into two, right? So this is going to be the major arc, and you can see this one is the minor arc. Getting my point? So here you can see a piece of circle, you can see the complete cut between 2 points is called an arc, right? So यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं दो arcs बन गई, one is the major arc and the other one is the minor arc. So बड़े वाली क्या है major और छोटे वाली क्या है minor. Now let me just tell you there are two, one longer and the other smaller. You can see this is the longer, this is the smaller. So the larger one is called the major arc, PQ. You can see PQ. And you can see the smaller one is called the minor arc, PQ. Now let me just tell you that in here one is major and the other one is minor. Now let me just tell you, suppose if I just divide the circle, let me just first draw the circle again. So now suppose if I just divide the circle like this, right? Now let me just mark these 2 points as A and B. Now you can see this is the diameter. That means I'm just dividing it from the center of the circle, right? So आप देख सकते हैं अब यहाँ पर this is again now divided into two arcs. You can see here again AB, then this is also AB, right? So you can see this time you can see both the arcs if divided from the center of the circle, right? So both the arcs then will be of equal length. Getting the point? Or you can say if the end points are of the diameter here, right? So if I just divide the circle through its diameter, right? So if A and B are the end points of a diameter, then you can see the length of both the arcs will be equal. Getting my point? So here you can see when P and Q, let me just denote it here as A and B, right? So you can see if when A and B are ends of a diameter, you can see I have divided the circle from the center. That means the line will form the diameter, right? So you can see these 2 points then will be the end points of the diameter, right? A and B are the end points of the diameter. So when A and B are ends of a diameter, then both the arcs are equal and each is called as a semicircle. Now you can see both the arcs will have equal length, that I have told you. Also let me just tell you that if I just draw this line here, now you can see these two will be the semicircles, right? Equal in area, right? So you can see when I divide the circle through its diameter, that means from the center, then the circle is divided into two equal parts. Then each part is known as the semicircle. Semi ka matlab half circle, right? So this is, you can see the two semicircles formed here in equal area, right? So this is the topic, that means arc. So that was, you can see all in this topic arc. So students, now let us move on to the next term here. So the next term now which I'm going to discuss here is segment, right? So let me just write that first. So segment, right? So what is actually a segment? Let me just explain you again with the help of a circle, right? So let me first draw a chord here. Let me just take 2 points here, A and B. So when I join these 2 points, so this will be a chord here, you can see. Now the one thing that you will notice here is this area and this area, right? So now let me just tell you, the length of a complete circle is called its circumference. That we already knew. मैंने आपको बताया कि ये जो पूरी length होती है बाहर वाली ये circle की, this is known as the circumference. Now let me just tell you the region between a chord and its corresponding arc. So आप देख सकते हैं अगर मैं यहाँ पे एक chord बनाता हूँ, then ये chord और इसके corresponding ये जो arc बन रही है, you can see here. So I have told you earlier that this is the arc here of here the circle. So you can see the area in between, you can see the chord and its corresponding arc is known as segment. right? So you can see here the region between a chord and its corresponding arc is a segment of the circle. So what is corresponding actually meaning here, right? Let me just tell you कि अगर मैं chord की बात करूं इधर, so इसके corresponding जो ये वाली, suppose if I just take up another point R which is lying on this arc, right? Also on the circumference of the circle. Now you can see this ARB. Let me just write down ARB is the arc here. Then you can see there's another arc AB, right? Now what is the difference between these two arcs? So this is, you can see the major arc and this is the minor arc. मैंने आपको बताया था जिसकी लेंथ आर्क की ज्यादा बड़ी है वो क्या होगी, मेजर आर्क होगी, and the other one is the minor arc. Now you can see the difference between these two arcs. Now अगर आप देखें यहाँ पे, तो अगर मैं मेजर आर्क और इस chord की बात करूं, then you can see so corresponding to this chord here and the major arc, you can see this is the major segment, right? So ये क्या है, major segment है. That means कि similarly that I have told you about arc which is of two types, one is major arc and the other is minor arc. उसी तरीके से इस major और minor arc and the chord के respective में segment भी कितने होते हैं, दो होते हैं. You can see actually this chord has divided the circle into two segments in correspondence with the major and minor arc. Now you can see the corresponding term. So यानी जो corresponding arc है chord के साथ, उसके साथ वो वाला सेगमेंट बनाएगा. यू कैन सी अगर मैं मेजर आर्क की बात करूं, सो कोड इस मेजर आर्क के साथ क्या बना रहा है, मेजर सेगमेंट. देन यू कैन सी कोड इस माइनर आर्क के साथ क्या बना रहा है, माइनर सेगमेंट, राइट? सो एक्चुअली द कोड डिवाइड्स द सर्कल इन कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग विद द आर्क इनटू टू parts. You can see, so the one is major segment and the other one is minor segment. So you can see clearly the region between a chord and its corresponding arc is called as the segment of a circle. And I have told you that the segments are of two types now, the major segment and minor segment, right? So this is the topic you can see which needs to be discussed, which is named as segments. So now side by, let me just also explain you one more topic here. So let me first rub this. Now this is going to be the last term which needs to be discussed before moving on further, right? So now this time I'm going to discuss the last term, and that is actually named as sector, right? So here I'm going to explain you what actually a sector is, right? Let me first draw a circle here like this. Now let me just take the center of this circle as O. अब यहाँ पे मैं आप देख सकते हैं दो पॉइंट्स ले रहा हूं circumference के ऊपर, that is A and B. Now let me just join these 2 points with the fixed center like this. Now I have told you that this distance is radius here. So आपको पता है कि सर्कल की circumference पे जितने मर्जी पॉइंट्स लाई कर रहे हो, all are at a fixed distance from the center, which is known as the radius of the circle. That I have told you. So आप देख सकते हैं अब ये दो रेडियस और एक आर्क मिलकर जो ये एरिया ऑक्यूपाई कर रहे हैं, that is known as the sector. Now you can see again यहाँ पे जैसे आर्क दो तरह की होती है, one is minor arc and the other one as major arc. So आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे ये minor arc है, ये वाली AB, और ये जो दूसरी है दैट इज द मेजर आर्क, राइट? सो जैसे कि दो आर्क्स हैं वैसे ही सेक्टर भी अब क्या हो जाएंगे, दो हो जाएंगे. यू कैन सी द एरिया ऑक्यूपाइड बाय टू रेडियस एंड एन कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग आर्क इज नोन एज सेक्टर. सो ये क्या हो जाएगा, अब जो माइनर आर्क के कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग में एरिया आ रहा है, दैट इज यू कैन सी द माइनर सेक्टर. Getting my point? So you can see the other remaining, you can see area will then be known as major sector, right? You can see this area is greater here. Let me just write it clear. So ये area ज़्यादा है. You can see that is also correspondence with the major arc and two radius. So this will be known as the major sector, and this with in the correspondence of two radius and the minor arc will be known as the minor sector, right? So now I hope you have understood about the arc, then segment and then sector. So यहाँ पे मैंने आपको बहुत सारी terms explain कर दी, like you can see first of all the radius of the circle, then the diameter of the circle, then coming on to the chords here. So you can see then about the sector, then about the segments. So you can see now you have came across a lot of terms. So what you have to do is just keep rewind the video and just learn all the important terms which are going to be required in the upcoming chapter, right? So that was all in this video. So thanks a lot for watching this video.